Hello to you watching. Thank you for clicking play. I'm excited to be here today with Lisa and JR of the Nebraska Vietnam Veterans Memorial Foundation. It's May, which is Military Appreciation Month, so I'm happy to spend some time with them today learning more about the foundation. Hello, Lisa and JR. Thank you.
Good morning or
Hi,
good
Katie.
afternoon.
Yes, indeed. Let's kick off with tell me a little bit more about the foundation and the work.
Sure, I'll take that one. I'm Lisa Cuevas Jorgensen. I'm the Vice President for the Nebraska Vietnam Veterans Memorial Foundation, and I'm also the Senior Director for Community Initiatives at Bellevue University. And in 2017, a few Vietnam veterans from our local Vietnam Veterans of America Chapter 279 decided that they really wanted to construct a memorial to Nebraska's nearly 400 killed in action Vietnam veterans. At this point, Nebraska is the only state that does not have a statewide dedicated memorial to Vietnam veterans. There are lots of smaller memorials around state for their community, but Nebraska suffered a loss of 400 soldiers during that conflict, and Chapter 279 started out wanting to make sure that those soldiers are memorialized. In 2019, NVVMF was formally formed as a 501c3 here in Nebraska, and we got partners such as Prohaska Associates, Bellevue University, Eris Company, and others to come in on the ground floor to develop plans, to start fundraising, and to see this through. And today in 2023, it's a $7.2 million project that will be built in Sarpy County, just south of Sumter Amphitheater near 108th and Highway 370. We have raised about $5.2 million towards the effort, and we are currently awaiting the passage of LB 609 in the Nebraska unicameral that would appropriate the final $2.5 million in order to get the memorial built. If that passes, once that passes, we expect the memorial to be opened on March 29th, 2024, which is National Vietnam Veterans Memorial Day.
That is right around the corner, and I do want to show people. You mentioned the plans, some of these renderings.
Yes, it is meant, there'll be 11 obelisks, which are those kind of cone-shaped granite objects, one for each year that the United States was formally involved in the Vietnam War, or Vietnam conflict, as some folks refer to it. On each of those obelisks, there'll be events that were pertinent to that year, both in the United States and during the war. Our centerpiece we have two really prominent centerpieces. One is a triangular shaped memorial wall that's reminiscent of the Vietnam Veteran Wall in Washington, D.C. That will have some significant events on it, but more importantly, it will show the 400 Nebraskans that were killed during the Vietnam War. Officially in DC, there's only 396 KIAs from Nebraska. Our memorial is choosing to recognize the 4 Nebraska Navy men who were killed in the USS Evans sinking that was offshore, but not, it was just right outside the arena of conflict. They were in a training exercise, and an Australian ship rammed into them. 79 souls were perished, and it has been a difficult time for all of those families to get recognized on the wall in DC because they don't meet certain criteria. But we feel very strongly that those sailors need to be memorialized as well.
In service to our country.
And then let me not forget about the UH-1 Huey helicopter that will go up on a pedestal. It was donated to us by a VBA chapter in Vermont. It came from Bennington, Vermont to Bennington, Nebraska, and was stored in Bennington, Nebraska for a little while. And then we moved it over to Iowa Western Community College and their aviation project. And last year in September of 2022, it was unveiled as a restored in all its glory. The great thing about that was the National VVA magazine ran an article about that helicopter. And soon after, Craig Fouts called us. He is the original crew chief of that helicopter. He flew it in Vietnam. On his 21st birthday, he picked up that helicopter that had 21 hours of flight time on it, and he flew it during his time there. And he was also in touch with the whole original flight crew. And that day in September at the Iowa Western Community College hangar, that whole entire flight crew came and was there when we unveiled the helicopter. It was really an emotional day. They signed the helicopter. And I think when folks come to the memorial, it will be a place of course, reflection, but of an honor, but also of gratitude and a remembrance of the sacrifices made by our Nebraska families.
Cannot wait to see it. Now, as we are in May, Military Appreciation Month, can you talk a little bit about the significance and importance of this time?
Absolutely. I'll say a couple words and I'll let JR finally talk. But as a civilian, Military Appreciation Month is important to me personally because my uncle was a Vietnam veteran. He came back from the war. Back in the 70s, we didn't know anything about PTSD. He ultimately took his own life, in 1976, May of 1976. And my father was a World War II veteran, Navy man. I had uncles in the Korean War. I continue to have cousins and friends in the military. And of course, Bellevue University, our background is in the military. We were founded as an education institute to help military personnel use their benefits and also transition to civilian life. Without our military, where would we be? It's very important to understand that they're not only protecting our country, that individual isn't only protecting our country, but that whole family is protecting the country. And a military family makes lots of sacrifices for our freedoms. And so it's really important to me, and I hope to everyone, to understand that our democracy is not free. And we owe it to the fellows and men and women, anyone who is helping defend our country and help us be free. JR?
Well, and Lisa would have made a real good Air Force recruiter or military recruiter because she has that ability to guilt people to make them truly understand or help them to understand the value that our military veterans bring. I do remember when I first got here, they told me that Bellevue University actually looks at that military service as a national treasure. The experience that our service members have, the commitment and sacrifices they make on behalf of us all is absolutely incredible. Memorials like this will help people understand better those sacrifices, not only from a name on a wall, but the technology that we have involved with the tiles that we recognize other service members, not just the ones deceased, will show and be able to have stories of the family and some of the sacrifices that they made while that service member was serving. So it's a whole community that gives. And that's kind of what one of my key roles. I'm also a board member, J.R. Richardson. Some people know me from my previous role as the director of the Veteran Center here at Bellevue University. But I've been very fortunate that Mary Hawkins was allowing me to move over to a full-time position to assist in gathering the oral histories of our Nebraskan families and the veterans that served. So we are working under the guidelines of the Library of Congress. We've actually had their members train our team on 2 occasions so far, and will be directly involved with this project all the way through. And so we are working very diligently because it is a time of it's a race against time.
Yeah.
Because our Vietnam veterans, and we spoke earlier, so they're dealing with issues that the other service members did not necessarily have in such a large area. And I'm referring to mostly the Agent Orange and the many causations for different types of cancers and diseases and illnesses that was directly linked to the exposure of the chemicals that they used in defoliation of the jungles that they were fighting in. So they were directly in contact with this stuff and have had long-term hazards to their health and to their family as well. So we are in a race against time. There are right now 40,000 known veterans from the Vietnam era, some in country, some serving throughout the world in that during that time period. And just in the last 2 years prior to this number I gave you of 40, we lost about 4,000 between the year 2020 and 2022. So 10% of our service members that served during that time period we've lost. So it is a race against time. We have a really exciting team built here locally, what we call Mecca, and they're getting the interviews done here on campus with our volunteers. But we're also stretching out. We would like to get a total of about 30 locations. We've identified half of those so far throughout the state, where we're getting more volunteers to continue to do interviews throughout the state of Nebraska. And that way our veterans don't have to travel 5 hours to be interviewed. At the end of this month, we'll be doing interviews in Scottsbluff at one of our partner schools. Bellevue University has partnered with the community colleges throughout the entire state of Nebraska and throughout the country. We have many partners, but through Nebraska, the importance is our partners are helping us in this endeavor. So we'll be conducting interviews on their campuses as well. And many of those volunteers, I'm sure, will be coming from those campuses.
Right.
Well,
I think I'm sorry. I think it's also important to hear
all that you are doing to gather those stories, and I can't wait to see that come to fruition.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's important to note that our president, Tom Brown, of the NVVMF board, and then our secretary, George Abbott, they're both Vietnam veterans, and they have been on the ground floor. They're founding members of the organization. They like to say that neither one of them their home of record is not Nebraska, but they felt so strongly that this had to be done, that they're all brothers and sisters, that the appreciation has to be shown, that they've been really, they work. George has a full-time job, but he practically works full-time on it. Tom works full-time on it. They also like to keep reminding JR and I that they don't have much time left, both jokingly and not jokingly. So as far as Military Appreciation Month goes, I think it's really important, whether or not it's about a Vietnam veteran or a different veteran, it's important to say thank you. It's important to acknowledge their service. It's important to remember that they've given up a lot to make sure we're all safe. So that's why military appreciation is important. For Vietnam veterans, it's important because they did not receive a really great welcome home when they came home. Our volunteers, our Vietnam veteran volunteers, they tell us about being told to take off their uniforms when they got stateside. As soon as you hit an airport, go into the bathroom, put on your civilian clothes, and don't let anyone know that you just came back from Vietnam. They were vilified, and they were just doing what their country asked them to do. So we want to make sure we never forget, and that those military personnel that were killed are never forgotten, and that we educate people about what happened. Our NVVMF website, you showed it a little bit ago, but we've got a lot of educational resources, including lesson plans for grades 3 through 12 that can be used by anyone to learn more about the Vietnam War. So we want to say thank you. We appreciate all of our veterans, and especially our Vietnam veterans.
And during this time for the recognizing the military throughout the month, one of the things the viewers could do is if they have a relative that's served during that Vietnam time frame, maybe give them a call and help them or share the information about our willingness to do the interviews with them. So there is some cost involved, but Bellevue University has taken care of all of it. So our equipment, our SD cards, the technology, the time putting them together, they're willing to do that for the families. So if they want to reach out to a neighbor that they know that's a Vietnam veteran, a friend that they know, they would be helping us to help us find those so that we can get those stories. The whole picture is not complete without all the pieces.
So perfectly said. Thank you both for your work. I cannot wait to see this come to fruition and hope that all those who are watching today do their little bit and piece to support the work of the foundation and celebrate Military Appreciation Month.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.